There's been more of scientific discovery, more of technical advancement and material progress in your lifetime and mine than in all the ages of...
Hi there. Welcome to episode 695 of Recruiting Future with me, Matt Alder. I strongly believe that AI is the most significant technological transformation of our lifetimes. What will separate talent acquisition professionals who will thrive in this new world from those who'll get left behind? The answer isn't about the technology itself, but about our mindset towards it. Viewing AI as an opportunity rather than a threat might be your most important career decision this decade, determining whether you'll lead or follow as this revolution unfolds. So, how do we transform our mindset from panic and denial to opportunity and strategy in a way that positions us to thrive alongside AI? My guest this week is Ronsley, author of the brilliant book Amplify AI. Ronsley's background as a software engineer and subsequent career in business and podcasting means he brings uniquely valuable perspectives to this conversation. In our discussion, we talk about the psychological barriers that can prevent us from thinking about AI strategically. We explore how TA professionals can shift their mindset from fear to opportunity and build on their existing expertise to develop practical approaches to AI adoption that emphasize courage and strategic thinking. Hi, Ronsley, and welcome to the podcast.
Hey, man. How's it going? How's it going, Matt?
Really, really good. And it is an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Please, for the benefit of everyone, could you introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
It's so much easier when someone else does it because you don't actually know what to put in there. And a lot of the times I feel, should I mention that? Should I not? But the best way to explain what I do or what I've been doing is the first part of my career was talking to computers. I'm a computer scientist, software engineer, can program in 21 languages. My first job out of university was to program a tractor to wake up in the morning and plow the field using GPS and park itself. Give you a rough, this was way back in the day. It feels like such a long time ago. And then the next part of my career was talking to humans, as you mentioned, podcasting, and 13 years in the field, I suppose. Started the first podcasting conference in Australia, signed the first deal with Amazon, Audible in Australia, and easily our companies would have helped at least 1,100 podcast businesses and brands start and grow a podcast, over the last 13, 14th year now. So I've been a proponent of amplification for a while. And it's really interesting because I find the overlap, and the overlap is I love amplifying people's genius. So, whether it was podcasting or AI now, which, the two parts of my career have come and joined and had a baby almost with the artificial intelligence. So, I feel like they're both amplifiers in a huge way, especially of people's genius. If they've done something and they're the ones that feel like the best kept secrets in their industry, then it feels like these are two elements that will really, really help them.
And that's why I wanted you to introduce yourself, basically, because I think that, that unique background you have of like content creation, marketing, and being an actual software engineer, I just think it's why it's amazing to talk to you about AI. So you mentioned, you started off programming tractors to plow fields and things like that. So you've obviously been, looking at this space for a long time. Are you surprised by the developments of the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I think anyone in any capacity would be surprised at the speed at which it's happened. So to give you context, it took me 4 years to get a bachelor's of engineering, computer science and engineering. Then it took me another 3 years to get a master's of software engineering, another 2 years to get an MBA. This is while I was working. The masters were while I was working. But to give you context of when I went to university, this was just a theory. The blockchain was just a theory. We had an idea of what could happen in a decentralized system, but we didn't have fast enough computers. We didn't have, that much data that we could store. Internet was not even fast enough. So there's all these limitations that didn't allow or even allow us to conceptualize this far ahead. However, if you know the curve of adoption, not only adoption, but the curve of how much computing power you can fit into a small inch is a exponential curve. So this massive improvements that have happened over the last few years. I mean, when the first supercomputer got built, it almost was like someone ran the first 4-minute mile. It just started to, people started to break those barriers, which were thought of as it was impossible almost, just because the hardware could not support the theory. So yes, of course, 100%. It would be stupid not to say that anyone that knew exactly that this was where we're headed. We knew that in theory, but this quickly, I don't think so.
And do you think that this sort of kind of incredible sort of pace of change, this curve, vertical curve we're going up with, is that sustainable? Are we likely to see the same kind of speed of development over the next 5 years?
I think it is sustainable. I think the only thing that doesn't allow it to be sustainable is humans' need for not wanting to change. It's probably the only thing that will.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that will come in the way. But in terms of what is possible, if you look at Industrial Revolution and how much we do with machines already, but we don't even remember. We just think it's normal. It's not normal to control the temperature of a room. It's not. It is. We just take a lot of these things for granted. Yes, it is sustainable because it's been gradually happening. It's just that we don't notice that it's happening.
Yeah, that's a kind of a stunning point, actually, just in terms of how quickly we take things for granted. I want to dive into the human part of this in a second, because it's sort of really important for our industry and the sort of the conversations that we're having and the technology that we're seeing develop. Before I do though, I just wanted to get your view on, there is so much hype about Gen AI now and agentic AI and agents and all this kind of stuff. Where's the line between hype and reality? Are things being overhyped? Are people sort of talking about things that are going to be possible in a year's time as if they're possible now? Where's the line of reality currently?
Well, that's a great question, because it's an annoying goddamn line, especially for me, hearing some people say really dumb stuff publicly. But it's the bro code of marketing, to fake it till you make it. So I don't know whether that part has changed. I think there's always going to be a bunch of people that will take that and use all these fancy words. Like there are people, I actually watched a really good friend of mine and very well-known entrepreneur put out a post about, we just built 3 agents in the last half an hour. No, you didn't. You built an assistant. If that is a big difference between an assistant and an agent. So maybe to clarify for people listening, an assistant is someone that you hand over a task to and you say and guide and hold hands with, and you get your solution. An agent is, here's my task, get it done, and it'll find the best way to do it and do it with a checklist and create assistance to help the agent achieve. So it's agentic behavior. It's hands off. It's more, I suppose, what people think it will get to. And it's already here, by the way, but it's not that easy to make. It's not that easy to especially teach someone else, So of course there's a hype. Yes. Yeah. And it's usually the marketers that are making the hype. And then I think the marketers are on one side making the hype, and then there's the media that's pulling everyone down, and there's somewhere in between, the entrepreneur's way to find their own space in this world. Because this will easily be the biggest conversation of our lifetime. There's no debate on that. It's going to change how we even educate our kids, right? It's changed everything. So I think, conversations aside, I think we all got to take responsibility to learn this, because just like the web and the internet, even that is a small speck as to what possibilities are with AI. And right now, the way people are using AI, it's like, you have a laptop, but you're using it as a paperweight to to put over your bills. So, people are still not using it to its full capacity, and it's obviously being hyped a lot.
The reason I ask you that is because, certainly in talent acquisition, we've got this huge amount of hype about what's possible and what's not possible and that sort of thing. And then on the flip side, a lot of people's experience of Gen AI is just seeing LinkedIn full of kind of identikit posts, and that to many people is generative AI, people just using ChatGPT. And there's a really kind of sort of false narrative that it's not that sophisticated. It does this. It's not very interesting. You can easily spot when someone's using it, but it couldn't be more wrong, could they?
Yeah, if someone's like, oh, I write all my content myself, is like saying I didn't use a calculator to do the math on this, or I washed my clothes by hand, or I manually swept the floor, or didn't use the vacuum cleaner. It's just such a handicap to not use AI. But the problem is that most people are not using it correctly, so they're getting very generic results, and as a result, they kind of associate AI with that. I mean, same thing happened with Facebook, right? When first Facebook came out, everyone that had a Facebook account was a social media expert, and I don't think even they knew what they were doing in a lot of respects, which is what's happening right now. But I just wish that people listen to the right people. But in general, if you think about how the world's working, the ones that are shouting the loudest are really the ones that are being heard. If you think about it, they might not have the expertise. Even you look from afar. I'm talking about not only world governments. I'm talking about in general. It's a very common theme in organizations. We tend to view an influencer's view on a topic more highly than an expert's view on that same topic. So I suppose we shouldn't be surprised, and it's stupid to fight the current, I suppose. But knowing the current and then swimming along in a way that gets you to where you want to go is probably the way to do it. And I think, to answer your question, most of us get caught in the current because we actually don't know where we want to go.
No, I think that's the thing. And I think also people just don't perhaps appreciate the sheer breadth of tools that are available and exactly how to use them, and all those kind of things. And some incredible things are already possible with what we've kind of got access to. I want to shift to talk about this humans, machines, relationship, competition, whatever it is. In recruiting, there is a kind of a real sort of debate at the moment about how much AI should or can do in the recruitment process. And I think that people are perhaps drawing the line in the wrong place. I think that there's a feeling that humans can do some things better that actually we really know computers can. Where does the line between humans and machines sit with this? What is it that humans can do that machines can't replicate, or certainly can't replicate now or in the near future?
I don't think there's anything that humans can do that won't be ultimately. I'll tell you why, because I think if you understand the how AI has come together, is a combination of neurology and psychology and physics and chemistry and math and computer science. There's about 8 or 9 different fields that come together to create AI, the field. And computers are built on us. It has long-term memory. It's got short-term memory, just like us. It's got compute, just like us. It's got neurons firing in certain ways, just like us. So, it's the only reason some of the things are not possible yet is because we've not found a way to articulate what that is. For example, emotional intelligence is probably a new-ish field. And, our parents might not even know what being present might even mean, as an example. So it's only newly these topics have only been able to be expressed now, but over time, we know for a fact certain things we're not good at. We're not good at memory. We're not good at memorization. So it would not be smart to go against a computer that is extremely good at memory. So there's certain things right now you can only see that. And when you keep asking about the line, I think we're going to constantly redefine that line. I think that line is going to change. It's going to be very drastic. There was a time when all of us didn't rebelled against emojis and selfies, but we use them now. So
I remember cameras on phones seemed like the most ridiculous thing that anyone had ever invented.
Right. And now you see it's a whole new version of a human that are being, I suppose, educated to operate in the world in different ways. And I'm talking about schools. I'm talking about through social media and different types of media, and parents and how parenting is even done and how learning is even done. There's so much has just changed, right? And it'll continue to change. So that line is super hard to draw right now for the future. But as we stand, do the things that AI can't do right now, which is be courageous, be collaborative, be connection worthy. Those are the things that are super hard to do right now. And with AI is what I mean. And what's happening is people are just doing the same thing, right? You talk about LinkedIn earlier, they're just saying regurgitated stuff. It's AI generated, you can see it. But if they just was courageous enough to make that phone call that they've been avoiding, and that's why they put out this article, would have been way better for them than actually, using AI. So in a lot of instances, it's just, not wanting to do the courageous thing, or not wanting to do the collaborative thing, or not wanting to do the connection piece. And we're so disconnected. Funny enough, being so connected as a human species, but totally disconnected as a human being is more and more prevalent. And you'd agree with me on that, I think.
I agree 100%. And I think that, going back to what you said about this is the biggest conversation we'll ever have. I mean, 1 million% agree with you there. And I suppose to kind of help people with this. So how do we sort of move from panic and denial towards sort of opportunity and strategy?
Oh, I love this question for a variety of different reasons. I'm going to say to you that I'm very hopeful for the future, because I don't feel like being the opposite is useful to where we're going. Okay. So there's two ways to look at this. Now you can either artificial intelligence is learning from us. We know that. We can either be the parent that says, do as I say, or we can be the parent that says, do as I do. So if we keep going down this path of someone has to lose for me to win, then we're not headed down the right path in this AI race at all. But if we go down the path of this collaborative nature here, there's enough for everyone. There's abundance. There's let's all connect. Let's not divide over all these differences. Let's do the courageous thing. There's a lot of hope for what we can do. Then becomes the augmentation of intelligence, the thing that we crave, which is autonomy and freedom to do what we want to do when we want to do it, is totally possible, because I do feel like AI can solve some of the world's biggest problems. What it comes down to is whether the humans in power will allow that to happen, So there's so many elements here that are at play. And that's why having an open source anything in AI is the way forward. It can't be closed. It can't be policed. It can't be, rules can't be put on it, because it needs to thrive. It needs to flourish. It needs to grow. And we need to find better ways to do what we're doing.
No, absolutely. I think that finding better ways to do what we're doing is the real sort of core of this, because I think people are kind of protecting ways of working and institutions and things like that don't actually do the best job at what they could do. And I think recruiting is a classic example, because you talk to anyone who's looking for a job out there, and they'll tell you that it's a terrible, dehumanizing process, and we've just got to do better than that. And I'm really optimistic that AI is what's going to help us do that. So let's talk a little bit more tactically. What is it that people can be doing right now to kind of really get up to speed with what's possible to educate themselves? You kind of mentioned listening to the right people. How should people be experimenting? What kind of mindset is there? What do we all need to be doing?
There's a very big question. I think just learning, just taking responsibility of the fact that, this is a new skill that you might not have. And just because you get a response out of ChatGPT or any AI doesn't mean it's the right response. So there's an element of knowing what you're doing and how you're asking. And so, in business or in general, there's this value alignment gap that we all have, in the sense that it's hard for us to express exactly what's in our brain in words. So that's why the delegation piece becomes hard, especially, recruitment, someone comes on for the first time. That's why there's an onboarding process. That's why there's some training involved to get them up to speed with the lingo and how things operate in the new business. So I feel like there's an element of having to learn these new skills. And then one of the easiest skills to learn is logic, is how does a computer operate? What is required for the computer to do its best work? What is not common sense? What is common sense? What is explicitly required to be mentioned? What is not? How does the computer operate in terms of the process that you're asking of it? So there's all these different elements that I feel is being missed because people are selling prompt packs just to make a quick buck. And the copy and paste prompts will work, but you just don't know what's happening. You just don't know why it's working. And sometimes they don't even work. It's probably a prompt pack that they've put through another AI and just sold it to you. So, being more responsible of how this works and where it works is probably the first thing. The second thing is not necessarily to look at the new AI tools or the new AI news that's coming out all the time, but to build on whatever value piece you bring to the table. So if you've already spent, I think most people, you talk about the panic earlier, Matt, and the panic comes from, I've spent 20 years of my life doing this. What if it goes away? Rather than, I've spent 20 years of my life doing this. I know more about this. And if I augment that 20 years that I have of experience with this artificial silicon-based intelligence, I could potentially be untouchable, And I think there's a way of looking at that. So rather than look at it from a place of lack, So if you think about driving or drivers, we know that drivers are not going to be a thing going forward, or it's going to be much, much less. Drivers are going to, we've known for 10 years at least, if not much longer. But talk about that first job that I had that was unmanned vehicles. That was in 2006. So, that was even operational back then and, deployed back then, just not in public spaces. So drivers are going to be a thing that will be different going forward, but the ones that will probably do really well are the drivers that kind of go, well, what part of my job is not replaceable? Could I become a recruiter for drivers for their next job? That's going to be a field. Like, I'm just making stuff up right now.
Yeah, of course. It's like looking at that kind of opportunity. And it's kind of interesting because I was at a conference last week in the US called Transform, and the Transform, I think it was originally called Transform HR. The reason I like it is it's full of people having these conversations. So I was talking to someone who had been a recruiter for over 40 years, and they were there to think about how they could take their knowledge and build AI tools that would scale it. And it was exactly that kind of conversation. Just to, I suppose, maybe just give people a little bit of a kickstart, because I think there are lots of people who are just kind of stuck with Chat GPT, and that's the whole world of AI for them. What are some of the sort of favorite tools that you use, or what are things that people could play around with and get some value from really quickly?
Well, I just did a training for my group last week about how we used to have multiple ChatGPT accounts, including the Pro $200 ones, and we've gotten slowly just waned off ChatGPT, and we're all on the free version of ChatGPT right now. So it's interesting how we've gone from ChatGPT Plus, and we have multiple Plus accounts, and then we got the Pros account. We got a couple of Pro accounts, and then when actually there are other AIs that can do us the job, and we don't need all these ChatGPT accounts. Because I think there are different types of businesses. When you think about the three main elements of a business is attract, convert, and deliver. The businesses that are really good at attract, there's businesses really good at convert, and there's businesses that are really good at deliver. And they have to learn the other bits, but some of them are really good. So I think OpenAI is really good at attract, and they've done a great job. I don't think they're profitable, and there's a huge rumor out about whether they are actually profitable with how they've been operating so far, and it could very well be that they are not profitable. So neither here nor there, but I'm just trying to say that there's so many other tools that you should look at, and not only look at the tools, but look at how you talk to the tools, because if you know how to talk to the tools, then you yourself can gauge whether that tool is good for you. Like, I know that if I use a certain tool, I know, okay, well, I'm not getting the result I want because I know that my conversation tool is correct. So I don't have to debate whether this tool is good or not. So I think that's the first piece. Understand how you can communicate. The next is there's so many. Claude by Anthropic is probably one of my favorites right now. Gemini by Google, easily pushing some boundaries, especially with, I think their video is very good, and Notebook LM with podcasting also is extremely good. There's sort of elements there that are really good that Google do that ChatGPT doesn't, or even Claude doesn't. In terms of context size, the amount of data that Google is able to handle is way more than its nearest competitor by a long shot. So in that respect, Gemini is a pro account worth having. So we've got Claude, we've got Gemini, we use Perplexity. We think that is a really good one, especially with deep research. Grok is pretty good by Twitter because it's uncensored. So for example, my dad recently went through an angiogram and got an angioplasty, and we were trying to decipher his reports. ChatGPT wouldn't, but Grok did, which was useful. At the time it was useful because that's exactly what happened. I did not have a Grok Pro account, and then I actually bought it at the hospital, and it was very useful to look at the reports and click the picture and say, can you tell me what's going on, rather than wait for someone to tell us and even give us some twisted version of what the truth really is. So that's useful in terms of uncensorship, and I think I actually don't know where the line is with uncensorship. I don't feel qualified enough to talk about that in terms of AI, but I do feel that data is super important. So the amount of the data that the AI is trained on, or the context that you give the AI, is a huge piece of the results you're going to get. So there's different things. And I think what the key for everyone listening is, what is your use case? So right now, I would ask you to first go and make a list of the 10 activities you do most often in the week. Just make a list of what they are, and then find out what process you use to get there. And then see in that process if you can augment that with AI. And that will be way more productive for anyone listening than any tool I give you right now.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Makes perfect sense. Final question. Tell us about your book.
Yeah, the book is the second of two. The first book was Amplify, which is how to use a podcast to grow a business. And the second book is Amplify AI. Funny enough, the story of how the book is named is crazy, because I didn't think of this name. AI told me to name it this. And once it came up with the name, I was like, of course, it makes so much sense. But, you know, it was right in front of me and I didn't even. This book is all about augmentation of intelligence. It's about the reduction of human cognitive load. So you talk to people these days and you hear about how they are anxious or overwhelmed or burnt out, or there's all these human cognitive load is at its peak. We feel constantly that we're missing something that we're supposed to be doing in general. So the book would have taken 5 years to write. And it is just a combination of so much, including how a business can use AI to grow operations, revenue, brand, and audience. That's the third part of the book. The first part of the book is how to see intelligence. And I've used indigenous wisdom, algorithms that have existed in nature, like bird patterns and ecosystems, to inform how to create AIs going forward that are collaborative in nature. And the middle part of my book, part 2, is about ethical use of AI and what to think about when you're using AI. And I know most of us right now are talking about AI and are looking for use cases, but obviously there's an ethical boundary that we've got to talk about. People's data is at stake. People's, I suppose, IP in a way is at stake. But you know, how much of that IP really belongs to us is a big case that I'd like to make at some point. So I feel like the book is basically a map for businesses on how to grow those 4 things: revenue, operations, brand, and audience. And also a way to think about AI in a way that is useful for us going forward. Yeah.
Fantastic. Ronsley, thank you very much for talking to me.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Matt.
This is my show.